Ghost Hunting in New England.
Your favorite spooky podcast.
Hello and happy Wednesday. Welcome to Ghost Hunting in New England. I'm your host, Amelia, and I'm joined this week from Western New York by my co-host, Will Fox of Long Island Paranormal Researchers. Hey, Will, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am great, all things considered.
I still don't have coronavirus.
Well, God bless you. I'm not even going to make a joke there because I am very scared. I do not have it. But a lot of people here in Boston do, and I am praying for everyone everywhere, and we all need to band together at this very trying time.
Well, I'm going to take this time to admit that I blew it off earlier on air, and everyone knows that, but I didn't take it seriously enough, and now the XFL has shut down, the NBA has shut down, all of these sports that I watch and affect me are gone. So now I'm on board.
Yeah, it's wild. I've never heard of anything even remotely close to this. I'm in the area of Massachusetts at the hardest, and all the towns around here are closed. They will still be closed when this episode comes out. All the colleges are closed. It's wild. It is a wild, wild time.
It is kind of wild to think about because these episodes don't go away. So hello to all the listeners in 2035. Some people are going to look back on this episode and be like, man, remember that coronavirus thing?
Yeah.
But it is real. It's happening right now. We're recording on March 12th of 2020, and it is a very real thing right now.
It is so real, so crazy. And because of what I do for work and different projects that I have going on, and this virus very, very much affecting my work and my anxiety levels, I didn't have a ton of time to prepare for this week's episode. And luckily, Will was a champ. And he was like, you know what? I'm going to take care of it. And I don't even know what this episode's about. Will told me he was going to surprise me with something.
I'm very excited. We've confirmed that this is the first time in the podcast history where you don't know what we're talking about.
It's true. And as a control freak, that is really, really scary.
You handled it well.
Yeah, it's one of those things. What do they say? Bad times bring out the best in people, or I don't know. Whatever they
Something
say.
like that.
Yeah. I've been working 17-hour days and haven't slept in about 72 hours. So,
Oh, good.
At this point, anything anyone wants to do, just, it's all good. It's all good. I'm just going with the flow. All right. So, Will, what are we doing this week?
Well, it's a toss-up on if you're actually going to know what this is. I think you will.
Okay.
But we are talking about the Black-Eyed Children.
Ooh,
Yes.
Very nice.
Mm-hmm.
That is a great episode idea. Back when Beth was on the show, she always wanted to do an episode on it, but we never got around to it. So this is great.
That is news to me. I didn't even know that, but here we are. So we're going to do an episode on the Black-Eyed Children, which I have been super interested in for as long as I can remember. Like before my interest in the paranormal, as far as ghosts goes, I knew about this from when I was a kid. Like my grandma used to tell me stories about the Black-Eyed Kids.
Wow, really?
Yeah. So, my grandma loved scaring the crap out of us.
God bless her.
She's the kind of woman that crawled into the garden outside of our window and put a mask on and banged on the window while we were all sitting on the table, like eating and stuff.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
That's incredible.
She loved scaring us. So she used to tell us these stories, but now, from the stories that I do remember, they could be true. I don't know if she knew that she was telling us potentially true stories, but you'll see as we go on that they could very well be true. So, right off the bat, Amelia, do you know anything about Black-Eyed Children?
I know a bit about them, but I'm gonna give you the floor and let you educate us all.
Okay, so for those who don't know what Black-Eyed Children are, Black-Eyed Children are, I'm going to call them beings because we don't really know what they are. but we'll call them beings that usually knock on your door in the middle of the night and ask to come inside one way or another. They're trying to gain entrance to your home or car. We'll talk about that later on, but usually it's in your home. So you have two options at that point. Either you refuse or you let them in. If you refuse, they usually become more and more agitated. If you close the door on them, they could start banging on windows and other doors, and like windows that are higher than they should be able to reach. You'll hear them banging on the windows and doors that aren't accessible. But they will eventually leave if you just leave them to their own devices. But if you let them inside, they can do a variety of different things to you, your home, or your family, or your pets. It's a whole new world when they come inside. So you don't want to come inside is the point. A physical description of black-eyed children, usually they show up in groups of 2 to 4 quote-unquote children, and they're almost never alone. I have never seen a story of black-eyed children where there's only one of them. Usually they're extremely pale or have like bluish skin, almost like a corpse.
That's scary.
That is scary. And that lends credence to what people think they are. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later on. Usually they're dressed in period clothing, like dated clothing, and they're not usually dressed appropriately for the weather conditions. So sometimes you can see them in the middle of the winter, let's say up here in Buffalo, where there's snow on the ground, but they come to the door in like a shoulder-length shirt or something like that.
Interesting.
It is very interesting. You'll see a lot of weird, I don't know what you call it, the quirks with the black-eyed children, where they don't quite understand how they're supposed to act. So when they come to your door, they're going to hang their head and hide their eyes. They're not going to immediately show you their eyes. And they do that on purpose. They're generally aged between anywhere from like 4 to 16 years old. Usually they're around like 8 or 9-ish. They're always a mix of male and female. Excuse me.
Is that a cough?
Yeah, it is.
Do you have a cough?
I had to clear my throat. It wasn't a cough.
Okay.
Don't worry.
All right, continue.
I promise you can't get it over the airwaves.
All right.
Generally, they're a mix of male and female. I haven't really seen any stories where it's just male or just female. And the earliest sighting of a black-eyed kid, was by journalist Brian Bethel in 1996. That's the earliest recorded sighting.
Really?
Yeah, it's very recent.
I did not know. I did not know that at all.
Well, 1996, I mean, that's the earliest sighting of the black-eyed children that I'm talking about anyway. There's like Native American history of kids with black eyes. But when I'm talking about black-eyed children, I'm talking about the beings that either knock on your house door or your car door and want to be let inside. That's what I'm speaking about today. So there are recordings of Native Americans speaking about black-eyed kids, but that's not exactly what we're talking about today. I think that might be a different entity altogether.
Okay.
So, generally what they do, this is pretty much in chronological order here. First, late at night, usually between 1 or 3 a.m., you will be awoken, or if you're awake already, you'll just hear a loud knocking at your door. When you go to answer your door, they'll preface their story with something that sounds plausible, like they would say, like, our parents are coming to pick us up, or we're cold, or we're hot, or we're thirsty, or something like that. But like I said before, they don't quite understand how to act or what's like acceptable as far as that goes. So they'll sometimes speak very unusually or have a strange accent, or they'll mix their words up, kind of like Yoda almost, but it won't quite sound right. Right from the start, you'll know that something isn't right. So eventually, after they preface their story, they will ask to come inside your home or your car somehow. They'll ask to use the phone. They'll ask to use the bathroom. They'll ask to have something to eat or something to drink. Something like that. They will ask you to enter your home. Usually around this point, people start to get strange feelings about these entities. Almost like your gut is telling you not to let them in. Like something is wrong. Something's off about these kids.
I'm not going to lie. I got a weird feeling just talking about these things. I'm
sure.
like creeping myself out, looking all around my apartment like, oh gosh, I got like the heebie-jeebies over here.
Well, you'll find out later on that they cannot enter your home unless you allow them to. So you have nothing to worry about.
Yeah, dude, but I got Chinese food coming in like 2 minutes, and I got to open the door and go out there.
Well, then you might want to make sure you can see their eyes.
Yeah, that's fair.
So you'll get a strange feeling about them. Your gut will tell you not to let them in, or some people experience unusually strong fear. When I was researching, the way that I could, I was trying to find a way to word that correctly, because the way that I've seen and watched some YouTube videos and stuff about what people were experiencing, I couldn't quite put into words the terror that these people were supposedly experiencing. Like, it was the scariest thing in their life. So, unusually strong fear is what I landed on. But, like I said, they will not enter your house without permission. If you don't allow them to enter, or if you tell them no, or if you just close the door on them, they occasionally pretend to cry to try to get you to change your mind and make you think that they're actually just kids. But more often, they'll just become enraged. This is when they usually reveal their black eyes. So if you still have the door open and you just tell them, no, you can't come in, that's when they're going to look up at you. And you'll see not only are their eyes black, but their entire, eye socket is just black, which is terrifying.
That is terrifying.
Then they'll start to, like I mentioned before, banging on other doors, other windows, the walls of the house, shouting at you to let them in. Now, when I was doing research, I found one specific story. I didn't put it in here because it was super long, but it was an apartment building. And for anyone to approach your actual physical door, they have to be buzzed in by you. So they had gotten the knock on the door. They opened it up and the kids were there. And apparently this person already knew about black-eyed children, so they shut the door immediately. They said within seconds of closing the door, they heard banging on another door in their apartment. Now, they're trying to remember, I think they said they were on the 6th floor.
Dang.
The door that was getting banged on was to their balcony that had no other entrance or way to get to the balcony at all.
That's very scary.
That was one of the freakiest things that I had seen when I was researching this, because there's genuinely no way to explain that.
No.
Getting bangs at the door seconds later at a door that's inaccessible.
Yeah.
On the 6th or 7th floor, whatever they said they were, which is crazy.
For sure.
So, they're going to be banging on the doors, windows, walls, and they're going to be shouting at you to let them in. After a while, they're either going to walk away, get picked up by a black car driven by 2 black figures, or they'll just disappear.
Wow.
So I've seen pretty much an equal amount of all 3 of those possibilities in the stories that I've read. So that's what happens if you don't let them in. But if you do let them in, things change.
Yeah, that's when stuff gets real.
Stuff gets real. So there's been reports of the children attacking immediately, like scratching, biting, all kinds of stuff. But it is rare. There's not a whole lot of stories of that. And I honestly don't believe those. But more often than not, they end up coming in and acting somewhat normal. They'll come in and just sit on your couch or on the chairs or whatever you have, and they'll eventually reveal their eyes to you. Now, what's interesting about this is most accounts say that it was almost always on purpose. They would never, accidentally let you see their eyes. So, usually they have long hair or something over their face, like a hoodie or something like that, but it's almost always they'll let you see their eyes on purpose. And then they'll usually say that their mother or parents is or are coming, and they will be here soon, without you having to tell them the address or they didn't call their parents. They just come inside, and then they'll eventually say that their parents are coming.
Creepy.
It is very weird. Now, this is when it gets a little more weird, because accounts are very different on exactly how much time passes. Some people say it's only 5 minutes, and some people say that it felt like 6 to 7 hours of the kids being in their house. While they're in the house, they could do stuff like, say that they have to use the bathroom, but they'll always do it together. So they'll always, if there's 3 kids sitting there on your couch and they say, can we use the bathroom? They're all going to get up and they're all going to go to the bathroom together. During this period, while they're in the house, people have encountered and witnessed dizziness, nausea, blacking out. Their animals will become agitated or scared. In one case, the power completely goes out in the house. Eventually the children will say that their mother or parents are here. They're going to get up, walk outside, and then you can see them either getting into the same black car that I mentioned before, or they walk away. Generally, people would say that that's not that bad. At that point, you dealt with some dizziness, nausea, your cat got a little agitated, power went out, but the power usually comes back on.
Yeah, my cat's always agitated.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
There are some cases where the encounter causes long-term problems, or they assume that the encounter caused the problems. Some interesting tragedies experienced after an encounter include getting diagnosed with a skin cancer that is very, very much so tied to like tanning beds, like overly tanning in tanning beds.
Okay.
Generally, it's like linked to just that, basically. But it's like people that have never been tanning in their lives get this type of skin cancer. There's reports of some pets that were present during the encounter ending up passing away suddenly and like unusually, or running away. Chronic migraines are very common after these encounters, and even sudden and unusual heart attacks, which sometimes lead to death. So these beings could be potentially deadly to not only humans but animals, apparently. So what are you thinking about black-eyed children so far, Amelia?
I think they're pretty scary. I would be scared. I don't know if they're the scariest thing we've ever talked about so far. Are you going to tell us why they choose certain people?
There's a lot of speculation on why there's individual people picked out, but nobody's really come up with a theory yet. And believe it or not, myself being part of the Long Island Paranormal Investigators, we did a video on this topic actually a couple months ago. And one of the things that we had brought up, we're going to create a database and start looking into people that have these encounters and try to create a profile on the people that seem to get picked. Now, we haven't had anybody contact us directly, but from the research that I've done and asking certain people about it, I can't seem to put together a profile for it. It seems to be pretty random. The ages are all over the place. It's male, it's female, it's single, it's married. It's on apartments. It's in apartments. It's in houses. I can't seem to really create a profile for it, which is strange. But I'm going to ask you, Amelia, at this point, what do you think that black-eyed children are?
I have no idea.
That makes things easy for me. People think, or people have speculated, that black-eyed children could be demons, aliens, or potentially vampires.
Interesting.
So,
I've not heard that they could be vampires before.
I don't personally buy into the fact that vampires are a real thing, but obviously believe in demons. I do believe in aliens. Oddly enough, all three of these things have some kind of truth to them. So they could be demons because they are affecting like everything. Like they can affect you, they can affect your pets, your thoughts, your feelings, like physical environment with the power going out. They could do all these crazy things. They could be aliens because of one of the biggest keys in looking for or trying to identify aliens, them not quite understanding how to act around humans. So it's like the weird speech that I was talking about, dressing in old clothing or dressing not appropriate for the weather, that kind of stuff. So aliens is also possible. And then vampires, I think pretty much the only thing with vampires is like the pale skin and they can't come into your house unless they're allowed to come in.
Yeah, that makes sense. That part does sound like a vampire.
I feel like that's the only reason that vampires is kind of there. But I personally think, I don't think it's literally a cross, but I think it's some hybrid type of demon and alien. I'm not saying that it's an alien demon, but I'm saying it has qualities of both, and I'm not really sure what it is. It very well might be an entity of its own. I think it has pretty good qualities of both demons and aliens.
Okay. And while you were with Long Island Paranormal Investigators, did you guys ever meet a person in real life who had experienced this?
I wish. No, I haven't. I put out a post on Facebook in a group that I made sure that you were not a part of. And I reached out and tried to find somebody that had an experience. And this girl in this group, I'll use her first name, Brianna. I asked her to share her story. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but real quick. She was 16. She was trying to sleep, and she looked out her window, and she says there was an androgynous-looking child looking down at me into my window. She yelled some expletives at it and ran into her grandparents' room. But when they got back, it was gone. So it doesn't quite match up with exactly what we're talking about, but it did sound familiar. She said it was around 1:30 a.m., which that checks out. She said it had a round face with a squat nose and small lips. She couldn't make out any clothes, but she also wasn't looking for clothes. She did immediately feel some sort of fear and anxiety of it, but I think anybody would if they saw a child looking at them through their window. But that's the closest I've come to speaking to someone in person. Unfortunately, I haven't found anybody that's had an encounter in person yet. But I'm still looking. So if anybody out there has encountered black-eyed children, let me know.
Yeah.
So I've got, I think, 3 stories. One of them's kind of long, so I don't know if we'll get to all of them. But I'm going to start with this story from the hatchetbookgroup.com. I've never heard of this website. And I just really quick looked up what this website is, because this was just off a Google search that I found this story. The website is for authors to kind of come together and congregate and, I don't know, share their works, I guess. Take this with a grain of salt, knowing that this story came off of a website for authors. This story comes to us from, quote unquote, Jake. He didn't want to be identified any further. So it reads, "So black-eyed kids, the mere idea of them terrifies me. It didn't used to. In fact, I didn't understand what the big deal was. I don't know why. I mean, I just read stories online and articles about BEKs, black-eyed kids, just like everyone else, but I just didn't have that visceral reaction so many other people did when reading about them. So I embarked on a quest. I'd show people just how unscary these things were, whatever they were. Who knew if black-eyed kids were even a real thing? I'm the kind of person who needs to see it for myself. I began doing a lot of research online. I looked into paranormal sites. I watched scary YouTube videos about black-eyed kids. And from everything I gathered, they find you, you don't find them. And it seemed like it was pretty much just by chance if they did find you. So what was I to do? So I came up with a plan. I began putting up an anonymous ad on Craigslist. It read, quote, "Black-eyed kids, I am not afraid of you. I want to meet you. 9 p.m. Wednesday, the park bench on the corner of 3rd and Washington. Tell me why I'm wrong, and I should be afraid."
What the heck?
This person is definitely
This person's
really trying to...
freaking nut.
Well, yeah, not only for black-eyed children, but for psycho people.
Yeah, dude, don't meet people on Craigslist. Actually, you know what? I got a cousin, and he met his wife on Craigslist. And they dated for 6 years, and they're married. They got 2 kids. They actually live in Western New York as well. Actually, I don't know. Where's Syracuse?
Wow, look at that.
They live outside of Syracuse, I believe.
Oh, wow, so do we.
Yeah, there you go. Maybe you run into them. They're nice people. Yeah.
I've never heard of anyone actually meeting up on Craigslist and it working out.
They met up on Craigslist and they got married. Well, I think it's like people say, you'll never find anyone real on, I don't know, maybe Tinder?
Yeah, I don't know anybody that really met on Tinder and it worked out, so. I guess except me and my fiance.
Yeah. except you and the first girl you ever met on Tinder.
Literally the first match and conversation I've ever had on Tinder, we ended up deciding to get married.
You wifed her up. All right, but back to this freak on Craigslist.
Back to this guy that's trying to meet black-eyed kids on a bench. So the bench was only a block from my apartment. So every Wednesday, I would walk down there and see if anyone or anything came by. I usually wouldn't sit there. I'd just stand back and watch. I'm not stupid. He writes, "I'm not stupid." But
debatable.
He posted on Craigslist trying to meet black-eyed kids.
Debatable.
I may not be afraid for black-eyed kids, but I know the internet can attract some nuts. And it did, occasionally. Nothing exciting enough to write about. A couple of perverts and some teenage kids joking around. So this went on for 6 months, and I stopped posting the ad. The week I stopped, I got a knock on my door. I was sitting on my couch, and it was a little after 9 p.m. I don't know how to explain it, but the second I heard that knock, my skin went ice cold. I didn't need to get up. I knew who it was, and much to my surprise, I was terrified already. I was wrong about not being afraid of black-eyed kids. The fear is a different level, an instinctual, primal level. But still, I managed to get up and open the door. And yep, there was a kid, about 9 years old. Olive skin, dark hair, solid black eyes, staring up at me. "Can I come in?" he said. I was speechless. After what seemed like an eternity, I responded with a no, and I began closing the door. "We missed you at the park tonight," the boy said. I stopped closing the door. I looked at him, my mind racing. They must have been watching me. The boy smiled up at me. It took everything I had to make my arm move again, pushing the door closed and locking it. As soon as I shut the door, I gasped for air. I hadn't been breathing. I sat back against my wall, facing the closed door. Knock, knock, knock. He was still there. I waited. Nothing. It took me at least an hour to move from that spot, staring at the door. I didn't sleep that night or the next night. Eventually, I collapsed with exhaustion at my desk at work, only to be awoken minutes later by a nightmare memory of that boy. It's now been 6 months. I cannot explain the fear that washes over your body when you see the eyes of these kids. And the state of your mind, the way your body wants to listen to what they're telling you, what they're asking of you. I thought if I told you my story, it would help me get over what happened and warn others. I'm positive these kids are evil, and the people they meet who can't resist whatever power they wield, I don't think we ever hear from those people. I now avoid that corner park bench with everything I have, and I don't tell anyone why. People think I'm crazy sometimes, walking 3 blocks out of the way just to make sure I don't go near it. But you'd be the same way if you went through what I did. Black-eyed kids are nothing to mess with.
Scary.
Yeah, I hate that I found that on the website that I found it, because it is so well written. It is definitely a writer writing it, so I'd like to believe it. Like I said before, the MO of Black-eyed children, they never show up alone, which this one did. This one also had olive skin and solid black eyes right from the start, so it was staring at him right from the beginning. And it didn't seem to speak any kind of weird or anything like that. And he doesn't mention the clothing, so I guess there's really nothing to mention. It doesn't really match up with what the MO of a black-eyed children or black-eyed kids would be. So take this one with a grain of salt. Like I said, it is a cool story, but I guess that should be expected coming from a writer.
Yeah, good story. Good story.
Thanks.
Good story. What's the next story?
Let's see. Do we have time for one more long one, or should I do a short one?
Whatever you want to do. I got nothing to do. I just gotta eat some Chinese food.
Okay. Well, your Chinese food could wait, because we're going to do the long one.
All right.
This is from thoughtcatalog.com. And this one is titled Midnight Caller. It almost felt like a dream. I woke up to my dog Lucy barking. She was upright on the bed where my husband and I were sleeping with our 22-month-old daughter. Staring at the door like an unknown stranger was out there rummaging around. I thought she was just freaking out over a house noise. We'd only had her for about 3 months, and she was still a puppy. It could have been anything. Our roommate, a creak in the house settling, the awnings moving outside in the breeze. I wasn't really too concerned. I decided the best bet would be to open the door and show her nothing was there. It sounds a bit silly, but it's what we do with our daughter when she gets scared, and I figured it would work with a puppy too. I opened the door, and she raced to the front door. She stood there snarling at the door. It was an angry, violent growl, one I had never heard her make before. I looked groggily at her and opened the baby gate blocking the doorway, planning to open the door and show her everything was okay. The second my hand reached for the deadbolt, Lucy went wild. She started barking and jumped toward me, and when I touched the metal, she suddenly changed her temper. She started whimpering, almost like she was afraid and backing down. As her mannerism changed, so did mine. I wasn't calm anymore. My heart was racing and sinking at the same time. I had been flooded with a mixture of fear and dread. I looked through the peephole, and I cannot explain why I looked, but I did. Outside were 2 kids. One was just a smidgen shorter than me. She didn't look much younger. I'm 21, and she looked to be about 16 or 17. She was slender and pale. Her hair was a light shade of honey blonde, and she wore it long, about mid-back, with long, thin, blunt bangs in the front that covered most of her eyes. She wore jeans, a light wash that's popular right now, and a thin-looking olive-colored pullover-style hoodie. She held the hand of a small girl, who looked to be around 3 or 4, in the same exact jeans and a button-down ivory cardigan. The smaller one looked at the floor shyly, but she had the same shade of hair, tied back in a ponytail. She held a stuffed toy under her free arm. and it was identical to the one my daughter has, as was her style of dress. If it had not been for the feeling of overwhelming dread and fear, I probably would have asked these children in and given them some tea or hot chocolate just to get them out of the bitter cold. Something about them seemed off. At this point, I hadn't made any noise. I hadn't shushed the dog or grumbled, nothing. I hadn't turned on any lights, nothing. These kids had no indicators I was at the door, but the older one spoke. She had a voice that was mature, confident, strong, and accentless. She held her head tilted downward, and I couldn't see her eyes. She said, "We have to use your phone." I stood frozen in fear. How could she know I was there? She raised her head to face me directly, and that was when I saw her eyes. There was a reason I couldn't see them through her bangs before. They were black, or midnight blue, or a dark, dark purple. They were otherworldly. She said, "Our mother is worried." As someone who has always been interested in creepy stories, I knew what she was the second she looked at me through the door. I had never been one to believe in these things. As a staunch atheist and skeptic when it comes to the paranormal, I had written off many a ghost story from friends and family members eager to tell their tale. I didn't believe it. Still, I couldn't rationalize my way out of this. I was standing with nothing but a thin wooden door between me and a black-eyed kid. There was no questioning what was right in front of me. I did not answer her. Slowly and silently, I backed away from the door, Lucy still cowering at my ankles. She kept talking. "Just let us in and use your phone." I took another step back, and with that step, her tone changed. At first, she seemed polite. When I took that second step back, she became commanding, almost hostile. "We're not going to hurt you. If we wanted to do that, we would have just broken in. I'll ask again. May we come in and use your phone?" Lucy snarled at the door, and I inched backward, though something inside me seemed to be pulling me back toward the door. It wasn't a physical pulling so much as a subconscious need to go back and let them inside. I got to my room, covered up the window, locked the door, and sat there in the dim light of the nightlight. I heard her call me back to the door once more, but then quiet. I didn't go back to sleep that night, and I haven't slept right since. I know from reading about them that black-eyed kids can't just come in without permission. I know they haven't hurt anyone, but I fear I'll be the exception. When I told my husband, he said it was just a dream. He keeps telling me to forget it, but this lingering feeling of sadness, this dread when the house is silent at night, this fear of that knock at the door tells me otherwise.
Scary. Very scary. I got the creeps just talking about this. This is a creepy episode, Will.
I'm good. That was my goal.
You've creeped me out.
It doesn't take much to creep you out.
No, it doesn't.
But this is a good story. This one's a little more believable than the other one is.
And if anyone listening has had a real experience, please write into the show and tell us all about it.
Please do. I have lots of questions if you have.
Yes.
So, I have one last one, pretty short one, so this won't take long. This one's titled, "You Must Let Me In," and it is from the same website, thoughtcatalog.com. On March 17th, 2008, I had my one and only encounter with a black-eyed kid. Before my experience, I had never heard of anything having to do with the black-eyed kids. I was 12. I was sitting outside of a hairdresser's in an old Chevy pickup waiting for my mom to get her haircut. About 15 minutes had passed, and I saw some kid walking back and forth along the sidewalk in front of the parked car I was in. At first, I thought he was one of my friends from school, so I banged on the front windshield until he looked my way. It was not anyone I knew, but at this point, I was not scared at all. Not yet. The boy walked over to the side of the car and just stares at me. I think to let me get a good look at his eyes. Let me tell you, if you have never seen a black-eyed kid, you have no idea what to imagine. Eyes black as the night sky. This boy whispers, "You must let me in." And then I locked the car doors and ducked down into the space below the seats. 5 minutes later, he was gone. But when my mother got back into the car, she told me a boy with black eyes had come into the hairdresser's and insisted for my mother to give him the keys to the car. She refused. Thank God she did.
Wow, that's horrifying. And 5 minutes is a long frickin' time. That's a long time.
Long time when you're stuffed under the seats in the back of a car.
Yeah, that's a long time. Why doesn't anyone call the police on these kids?
I'm going to reference the video that I had mentioned before that we did on the Long Island Paranormal Investigators YouTube page. Look us up, LongIslandParanormalInvestigators.com. The leader of the group, Mike, had brought it up very bluntly and said, why has no one shot these kids? I mean, that's a little extreme, but I agree. I don't know why people haven't called the police or done anything but just close the door on them. I can understand that maybe just because they look like children that people wouldn't want to go up in arms about something like that.
Well, I wouldn't go up in arms. I mean, I don't have any arms, but, I would call the police. I'd call, I don't know, my brother. I'd call my neighbor. I don't know.
The one thing in these stories that I keep seeing is that whenever they yell to you from outside, the neighbors never heard a thing.
Ooh.
Which is a weird, interesting fact about it.
Yeah.
So, with all the banging on the doors and the banging on the walls and the windows and yelling, let me in, the neighbors never heard a word.
Interesting.
It is interesting. But that's all I got, Amelia. What do you think?
I think that is great. I was very surprised. I learned a lot, and I think that was a great episode. Thanks, Will.
Oh, well, you're very welcome. And I've got tons more of these, so anytime you want to take a week off, I'm here.
Well, I might have to soon because, as some people might know, I have a new podcast coming out. It's very niche. It's called Vegan Massachusetts. And if you're a foodie or you like kind of weird, it's me, so it's always going to be kind of weird topics, you can go and subscribe to that too. Maybe you just like hearing my voice in your earbuds. But we have all different things on there. We have chefs we're talking to, different things about new foods coming out. We have someone coming on who does cacao ceremonies, which is I don't really know a lot about it, but it's like a hallucinogenic trip using chocolate. We have someone who forages mushrooms coming on. We have someone talking about the keto diet. So we have all kinds of cool stuff. So you can go and subscribe to that now. It's not coming out till probably sometime in April. But I'm going in about 10 different directions. I'm doing that. I'm doing my day job. There you go. I just can't wait till we all can just say bye, Corona.
I can already see now the people that are going to cover the song My Sharona.
Well, that's why I said it.
But if it happens, then I guess we can be thankful that it is happening.
Absolutely. So, thank you again, Will. That was awesome. Do you have anything else you want to plug tonight, Will?
Well, Amelia, I certainly do.
Oh, good.
So, as always, I am looking for haunted dolls. So DM me on Instagram, at Will_Fox_paranormal. Normally, I will plug the Long Island Paranormal Investigators social media, the website, all that. But I'm going to forego that today. I want everyone to go to crepeberry.com. That's CREPE, berry.com. And I want you to go to the top right, and it says online store. Now, if you're not in the New England area, let me tell you, if you like coffee, go to that website. They got all kinds of coffee there. I don't know who runs this website, but there's all kinds of good coffee. And I've ordered some coffee myself. I'm not a coffee drinker, but I really like that coffee. I especially recommend the, what is it called? Medium roast ground coffee. It is very simple, very good. Like I said, not a big coffee guy, but it does taste very good. Oh, also, by the way, Amelia owns this place. So support local businesses through this coronavirus hell that we're going through, and get yourself some coffee.
Well, thank you, Will. That's very, very nice of you. I don't usually name the store by name on the show, but I don't want to toot my own horn. But thank you very much, Will. Yes, that's true. Everyone can go to crepeberry.com, and no matter where you are in the world, but if you're out of the United States, you do need to Venmo me for shipping, and we will send you coffee and tea and all that other stuff. And please, 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 I ask of everyone all around the world, because we're all in this kind of global fight together. If you're still going out and getting coffee or getting dinner or anything you do, getting your nails done, buying new clothes, anything you're doing, please, 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 I cannot stress this enough, support your neighbors and the people in your community who own small businesses, because losing, even if it's just 10 customers a day, makes such a huge difference to those people. And right now, everyone kind of needs to band together around the globe. We're all dealing with this tragedy, and hopefully it really resolves itself soon.
Exactly. And I'll say, Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, Tim Hortons, depending on where you are in the world. These companies are huge, and they're still surviving. They're still going to live through this. But these small businesses need some support out there. I know, Amelia, you would never plug it on the podcast. That's why I had to do it.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you, Will. And yeah, so whoever, buy my coffee, but whoever is in your town and your community, go out and support them. Because like Will said, the big chains will probably be around forever. But if this continues another 6 months, I don't know if the small people will be. And on that note, do you have anything else?
Nope, that's all I got.
All right. I think that's all I got too. Great episode. That was awesome. I'm very scared. I'm probably going to turn on some Maury Povich after this to kind of get back into my reality. And
don't let him in.
Oh gosh. Don't worry about that. I let no one in here. So as always, you can find us online at Crateberry.
There you go.
Oh my gosh. You can find us online at ghosthuntinginnewengland.com, Instagram at ghosthuntinginnewengland, Facebook.com/ghosthuntinginnewengland, on Twitter at ghosthuntingne. Please feel free to subscribe to our show, tell a friend about our show. You can send them, you know what? If you have a friend and they're like, I don't know how a podcast works, well, guess what? I figured out how to get the whole show in one video on YouTube. So you can just go over to our YouTube, send them a YouTube link. It's, again, Ghost Hunting in New England. Thank you all so much for listening and supporting our show. It really means a lot. And yeah, please wash your hands. And as always, happy hunting.